afternoon. How many people are still awake? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Great. So, okay, can we have the presentation, please? So we're talking about how new entrants, new retailers, retailers who are new entrants to a mall, what is the strategy for them to select which mall they should be in and which one they should reject? And so how do you basically choose the best mall? So I know people keep talking about location, and I'm not saying that location is not important. While location is extremely important, very important, but in the Indian context, it's also about the roads and how do you get to that location. I mean, if you were in Delhi and wanted to do a mall, probably Karol Bagh or Chandni Chowk would be a great location, but I don't know if customers would be able to reach there. So in the Indian context, the retailer has to sort of strike a balance between a good location with accessibility, or with bad accessibility, or not such a great location but with much better accessibility. There has to be the right balance between the two. Also, again, more so in the past few years, things are changing now. But if you go and end up building a mall with in a good location but don't have enough parking, then obviously the mall is not going to do well, and therefore more parking means more footfalls, more customers means more business, and therefore apart from the accessibility and the roads, the parking is also very, very important. Who is the developer? Here this slide talks about less developer and more landlord, because in the past we've seen that a lot of developers who came from the residential side, which is most of them, and started developing their first shopping center or the second shopping center and did strata sales. That means they sold cut pieces either shop by shop or on a percentage basis, and then the mall without a single owner would not run well, and therefore the attitude of the developer has to be long term. They have to think about 30, 40, 50 years, more like a landlord rather than just a developer who does the project and then gets out. So who's the owner? Who's the developer? Who's the owner? That's very, very important. And also the owner also should not have an attitude that I am the owner. The owner of the mall should have an attitude that I'm actually the infrastructure partner and the retailer is the operating partner. And that's how the relationship will work very well for the mall to be successful. What is also very important is design. We've seen a lot of malls in the country which have failed because of very, very poor design. I'm sure I don't have to name any mall. I'm sure that in each city all of you have seen malls that have failed because of confusing design, no proper circulation, no proper vertical or horizontal circulation, people getting lost, people not being able to find the stores, etc. So again, in the Indian context, we Indians are not great map readers or direction readers. So the simpler the design, the easier it is. I don't know if the architects sitting here in the audience would agree with that or not, but I would think that the Indian context, simple design works, where somebody can do a loop and sort of travel the entire mall just doing a loop. Also, design is not about the outside of the mall, but about the inside of the mall. When I say about inside of the mall, I'm not talking about malls like Ibn Battuta. I remember a very, very senior international retailer saying that, remember one thing, the most important thing for a retailer is that when customers come to a mall, they should take out their wallets or handbags and not their cameras. So it's very important that the mall is designed properly from the inside. The tenancy mix has to be very, very real. again, a lot of malls in the recent days have tried to go into too sexy a tenancy mix, if I can call it that. Some of the fashion is too fast, perhaps, for the catchment that they are located in, and therefore the tenancy mix has to be more real, designed around the catchment that that mall is going to serve. Remember that 73% of Indian women still wear ethnic clothing, so there has to be a good blend between Western and Eastern, if I can call it that, fashion. Also, a mall cannot be just about fashion and apparel. It has to be much more about a lot of other things like F&B and entertainment and beauty salons and maybe educational services and a lot more things. So more like serving all the community needs rather than only their fashion needs. You know, in many such panel discussions in the last several years at IRF or at Shopping Center Forum or at Fashion Forum, we keep hearing about this when there is a debate between developers and retailers. We only hear about rental and the cost of rental and things like that. But the key question that new entrants to the mall have to ask, that, you know, remember the saying that when you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So it is very likely that malls that are struggling and are not performing well will give you the least rentals, and malls that are doing well will have the highest rentals. So you have to decide whether you want to pay, you know, X percentage. Would you rather pay 8%, let's say, in a place where you're going to do a trading density of 2,000 rupees, or 10%, or would you rather pay 8% where you're going to do only 600 rupees? So this is a very important factor. Also, one of the things about CAM, you know, again, often debated and discussed topic, and always conflict between the tenant and the landlord. But one important thing about CAM that I think people are now realizing, and suddenly this is becoming a discussion topic, and I'm pretty sure in the next couple of years we're going to have more and more discussion about this, about malls that have aged, which have been around for 7, 8, 9, 10 years and need to sort of reinvent themselves. If they've not parked part of the CAM money into a sort of a fund or a sinking fund or something like that, then how do they go about changing a lift or an escalator or some air conditioning system or things like that? A lot of malls which are successful malls in India are going to face these challenges in the next couple of years. Like the panel earlier talked about, of course, management is very important, very key, and India is still struggling with good mall management. I think, where is Rajneesh? Rachna was praising In Orbit. I think the time has come, you know, for your management to start thinking about, you know, why, you know, when you have the Hyatts and the Marriotts and the Hiltons of this world managing other people's hotel assets, why can't In Orbit start managing other people's retail assets? Maybe a thought for your management. I don't see anybody else around here, so I'm sure you're going to pass it on. Not just management, but also good marketing. And I'm going to ask a couple of questions to my esteemed panelists here about that. Beginning with that, let me ask Ravi from Chakola. Chakola, for those of you who are not aware, is a very high-end, very premium cafe chain with a chocolate flavor. Ravi, when you go about, you know, I know you're in the expansion mode and you're looking at new malls. Do you want to add on to, you know, what points I've covered about what you look at as far as your strategy is concerned and saying no or yes to a mall?
Yeah. Thanks, Amit. I think you very exhaustively covered almost all the points. But yes, I definitely want to add on to one aspect which, as a retailer, I look forward to when I choose between malls or a location. You know, it's not the location, not the landlord, not the brand mix there. I mean, all these definitely matter to a large extent. But in today's world, you know, we market everything. You know, we market ourselves, we market brands. So for me, mall is a brand. You know, so I look at that, how does the mall management markets that mall? So for me, the marketing activities undertaken by a mall are a very, very important factor to decide on, you know, to enter that mall or no. You have examples, you know, you have a lot of examples. There are successful malls Delhi, Bombay, you name a city, and you have malls which are wall to wall adjacent, you know. So one mall is doing excellent, second is not doing excellently, and they have pretty tenant mix, you know. I mean, both of them have good tenants, but the differentiating factor comes in their marketing strategy. You know, what kind of events they do, what kind of promotions they do. And we being retailers, you know, I look at it, getting involved with the mall management there, doing a joint event or something. But when you go with a proposal, the mall management has to, you know, accept your proposal and be equally excited about it. So wherever I get that response, that really, you know, becomes my priority to go into that mall.
So you're saying that two malls side by side, all things being equal, the marketing makes so much of an impact.
Yeah, so if we say, you know, that everything is equal, location, the brand makes, so then the differentiating factor for me, I mean, the next point, how to evaluate a mall would be, you know, the marketing strategies or the promotion, the involvement of the management team in the promotion of the mall.
Let's say you were going to choose a new mall which is not yet operational, and you went in there during the pre-construction or the construction phase. Would you ask these questions? In fact, I'm going to ask this question to JP. JP, I know that L&T is developing 3 malls in the greater Mumbai area. Do you also have in your leasing package or the presentation that you make to prospective tenants, do you cover what's going to be post-op marketing of the malls?
I just want to add on here to Amit, you know, I think we are through that phase. Now what's happening, the malls have been developed by a particular developer, so he's going into a second or a third or a fourth mall. So whenever you go for his third or second or a fourth mall, you have his, you can evaluate him on the first mall, you know, what kind of activities they've taken there.
No, to answer you, no. See, typically what happens is we have our own set of parameters on which we evaluate the retailers. So we are very thorough on our research, be it any of the established national brands or any of the local fledgling retailers.
I was saying that we'll come to that part. I was saying that in whatever retailers come to you, and when you're making a presentation about what your mall is all about, do you also talk about what kind of marketing you're going to do once the mall gets operational?
No. We do not, because at that point in time we don't have that means how we are going to go about it. It's too early to talk about that.
Surjit, let me ask you, I think take the example of, I think you've just started handling Neptune Magnet Mall in Mumbai, and we were chatting earlier about how the mall doesn't have excellent footfalls. So what kind of marketing initiatives are you going to be undertaking to sort of get that mall to have more deserved footfalls?
See, Abid, for this, especially Neptune Magnet Mall as a particular case, if I talk about, you know, the biggest challenge which is coming down is a claim what to do. You know, the biggest thing which comes down, first thing, like if I'm designing a marketing activity, what is a claim which I can do? Currently, as the vacancies are very, very low. So obviously the first challenge which is there is towards the vacancy. And obviously there is a responsibility towards the existing retailers and to ensure that the footfalls increase. So for that, yes, you intend to do a lot of activities which are there. Currently, the biggest challenge which comes down is towards to cater to the neighboring catchment which is there, which is regularly visiting the mall, and secondly, without giving a statement or a claim, to invite people from the extension of or the new catchment which have still not visited the mall, at least to ensure that they come and see and what is that feature which is coming in. With that, we can do some CSR activities which we are doing. There are a couple of corporate activities which we are doing, but as a claim or anything like that, which we have still not started for this.
Zahir, from your perspective, especially because you're in a specialty retail scenario, sports goods and sports accessories, if you were to choose, I know part of your strategy in the past has been about waiting and watching after the mall opens 6-8 months, 1 year, and seeing the performance and then deciding whether to go in there. But if you didn't have that luxury, and if you had to choose a mall, or let's say in some location, let's say in Pune, you had a choice of 3 malls, you had to choose one of them because your strategy is to open only 1 store, and all of 3 are just under construction, so you don't have the luxury of waiting for them to open. How would you choose which one to go into and which ones not to go into?
See, as a category, as a brand, as a sports, I believe it comes as the last ladder of the retail chain, starting with the food and then apparels and then books and then finally sports. So I select for Sport Access as a sports brand where the right anchors are. Right anchors in the sense of, like, I don't go on where there's a value anchor, because as sport is a category which is going on the higher ladder. I need a right anchor which is not offering value as in a store. Another, being a technocrat and becoming a retailer now I started looking at the right design of the mall in terms of consumption. I study a lot on how you conserve energy, design air conditioning in the right manner which can impact the camp. I think I started looking at all those aspects also now.
Interesting. So I think Zahid talks about I will choose the mall based on whether the right anchors are there or not. I think Arif's panel is going to cover about how an anchor goes about choosing a mall. So then we'll learn about what they do and then what vanilla retailers should be doing or new entrants should be doing later. What else apart from marketing? Let's say again, Ravi, coming back to you, if you didn't know about the marketing, again, if it was a mall under construction, then how would you go about, let's say, choosing a new mall in, let's say, a city which you're not familiar with?
So then my next strategy would be definitely to sit across the table, understand what what they are bringing on the table, and look into their expertise in past and other things. And at the same time, when we are expecting from developer, I think as a retailer, I would also like to market myself in front of him and sit across the table and understand that how we both can make that particular mall successful, or how do we complement each other to be in that location.
So Ravi, tell me something. I thought that none of the panelists were supposed to know what the prize was. How did you find out that the prize for whichever team wins this gets to spend a night with Anish?
No, I mean, Anish is a good close friend of mine.
Okay, JP, coming back to, the topic that you wanted to sort of cover first. So if Chocola came to you and you didn't know who Chocola was, how would you go about, especially for this new entrant, how would you go about sort of making a decision whether you wanted them in the mall or not?
As I said, I actually was trying to tell you. What we do is we have a very thorough process of trying to understand the retailer. As you rightly put in one of your slides, that we need to think more like a partner, as a person, as people who are trying to provide the infrastructure for the retailer to succeed. And eventually, if the retailer succeeds, then only the mall will succeed. It's not the other way around, actually. So we try to understand as much as possible what the retailer is doing and where he is doing. So if I didn't know anything about Chocola, then maybe my first response would be to either you make me understand what you are, or give me some time to understand what you are, where you are, what kind of business you are doing. Let me go to your store, understand what kind of people who are coming into your store, whether they are fitting into the kind of positioning I am doing for my mall, if they are, the kind of people who are there in the catchment, whether that is right. So after that kind of understanding only, I will be able to, see whether it fits into the whole scheme. So for the new entrants, for the people who are who are not majorly present in malls, for them it is, my advice would be to have these things ready with them as a presentation maybe.
So what if you were heading the leasing and marketing for the largest mall in India and you had 495 stores? Would you still have that luxury of deciding who you want and who you don't want?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
With 495 stores?
Oh yes.
Okay,
that should be the approach. That should be the approach. See, intention should be there. That is what counts. At the end of the day, I may be, I may be pressurizing my leasing people, get me the brands, but at the end of the day, it has to be the right kind of brands only. I cannot afford to make the sum total a compromise sum total.
Okay. Very quickly, thank you so much. Any audience questions? We can take a maximum of, we'll do it at the end. Oh, great. Okay, so Anish tells me we'll do Q&A at the end. So thank you very much. for all the panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you, audience.